Unsolved Episode 2 Introductions to Family and Friends. A Sonic the Hedgehog OC and non-canon alternate universe fanfic. Made by Fantasee the Hedgehog. It's a brand new day as Sally Acorn is waking up in her bedroom chambers as her alarm clock went off and the sun's rays are beaming through the window blinds of her castle. She then went to her left from her double queen size bed to put on her morning slippers to go take a shower and change real quick before going to wake up Fantasee from her bedroom chambers. After taking a shower and changing into her clothes, she then went to Fantasee's room as it is close to 9 a.m. and Fantasee could be awake by now. As she entered the door, she saw that one of the guards were playing with her by shaking a baby rattle in front of her. "Who's a cute little baby?" "You are." "Who's a cute little baby?" "You are." As he was saying that, Fantasee then began to start giggling and laughing from the guard being funny and silly. "Having fun there, guard?" Sally said as she was standing a few feet away from the guard behind him when he got surprised and he jumped a bit from hearing her voice. The guard then spoke up and told her, "Oh, Your Highness, I wasn't sure if you were awake or not. I didn't want to disturb your sleep when I heard that Fantasee was waking up after a little past 9 a.m. And so I made sure that she wasn't taken away or that someone tried to break in through the window of her room. That's why I'm in here. And another reason is that I wanted to play with a baby." "Oh, you don't have to worry about that, Reginald. She's okay and safe. We made sure that her windows are very strong and protective in order to make it hard to breach through and steal Fantasee or cause her any harm in any possible way. In any way possible," Nicole said as she appeared in Fantasee's room and went over to her and tickled her a bit as it got Fantasee to laugh a bit. Nicole then began to explain more of the safety and emergency features and protocols to the guard as well too. "If I were able to be disabled or jammed by some kind of unknown or known enemy or intruder in the area, plus there will be a emergency to protect not only Sally Acorn and defend or capture the intruder for interrogation, but to also to protect Fantasee and make sure she's safe and out of harm's way." As Nicole explained to Reginald, the guard, Sally then went to go pick up Fantasee from her crib and held her in her arms, smiling at her. It was a very heartfelt moment to see Sally Acorn do for both Nicole and Reginald. Sally then got a notification, a message on her wristwatch from the captain saying that he needs all guards to report to the meeting room in the guardhouse for their briefing on the crashed pod they found from the pod that Fantasee arrived in. She then told Reginald about the briefing and to meet the captain and their guards their own other guards there on the crash site pod ship that Fantasee arrived in, and after she told them that, he acknowledged and went to go to the briefing and on their findings of the origin of the pod ship. "By the way, Sally, I've made breakfast for you and Fantasee. It's downstairs in the kitchen. Consider it as an early congratulations on adopting Fantasee." "Thank you, Nicole. I appreciate you doing this for us." As Sally and Nicole finished talking to each other, Nicole went back to work while Sally took Fantasee downstairs to the dining room hall to go eat breakfast this morning. After they both finished eating breakfast, Sally Acorn then exited Castle Acorn with Fantasee in her arms, heading over to her friend's house to introduce them to Fantasee the Hedgehog. While on her way to both Bonnie and Antoine's cottage on the outside of the city of the Acorn Kingdom, near one of the gates, she did caught some attention from the bystanders and citizens on the streets as she passed them by while holding Fantasee in her arms. Cute baby! There, Your Highness. Congratulations, Your Highness. She's so very darn cute and pretty. Good luck on finding her a home or raising her as your own, Your Majesty. A few citizens said as she finally made it to one of the gate walls as she walked through to the outside heading toward Antoine and Bonnie's cottage in order to ask them for a small favor and hoping they would understand. As Sally arrived at the small stone gate entrance that is almost Sally's height but can still see over it, she saw Bonnie and Antoine in the front yard doing some gardening work in the huge, wide open farm field land that is 132 acres of land, while their kids are at a kindergarten of their first year in elementary school. While entering through the main gate and walking up to the farmhouse with Fantasee in her arms, tickling and making funny faces to her, getting her to giggle and laugh out of joy, Bonnie then got up from bending over to look at the soil and crops and to look behind her from the sound of a baby laughing and giggling to see her friend Sally Acorn, but it appears to be that she's holding a child in her arms, making funny faces at while walking up to the house. Hey, sugar, we have a company coming up to our house, and it's our old friend Sally. What, Sally Acorn? We haven't seen her in a long time now, since last month, when she last visited to check up on us and our family. Let's go see her and take a break from our work for a bit. Both of the married couple shouted at each other that are 15 to 20 yards away across the farm field. They both then stopped what they were doing and both headed back to the farmhouse together as Bonnie waited for her loving husband to get next to her so that way they both can hold hands and walk back up to the house together. Once they reached the house and met up with Sally Acorn, the happily married couple saw that Sally is sitting on a wooden bench on a porch holding a baby in her hands. Congratulations on having that baby, Sally girl. I knew you would find true love too one of these days. Bonnie shouted happily as Sally got a bit startled from her appearing out of nowhere. Oh, Bonnie, you startled me there. You could have knocked on one of the wood to let me know that you made it. Also, this isn't my biological baby. She appeared out of nowhere from the outskirts around the forest entrance of the Acorn Kingdom. I'm sorry for starring you, Sal. I was just... Bonnie then paused for a second, along with her husband, Antoine, after Sally mentioning that the child isn't hers and that it came out of nowhere. Bonnie was about to say something until her husband, Antoine, broke the silence in an awkward moment by asking, So, you're adopting a child that came out of nowhere in a pod along with the baby coming from an unknown origin and looking similar to Sonic the Hedgehog? Antoine said after observing and getting a good look at the child. I know it sounds bizarre and weird. I know she looks like Sonic, but at the same time, I also feel like she's not from this universe, from where we live now, since my guards found a strange note that looks like it was written in a hurry, since it has to be to do with some kind of monster going after this person. It just makes us wonder who the messenger or sender is. After Sally finished her sentence, Bonnie then asked the million-dollar question. What made you want to adopt the baby, Sal? Sally then took a deep breath and exhaled before explaining her reason. It's because she looks like Sonic, and I felt bad for being very extremely bossy and controlling to him in the past for how I treated him, and I wanted to make it up to him in some way for him to forgive me. I know that he's not very happy with me and that he's not long gone into another city or so with his friends. But one part of me wants to make up for our falling out, Sally said as she grew sad and down. I understand, Sal. We can take care of her while you go and get the adoption and guardianship papers done for. Bonnie paused for a moment, not knowing the baby's name yet. I'm sorry, Sal. I'm sorry. Where are my manners, Sal? What is her name, by the way? Sally didn't reply with a smile on her face while she turned her head to look down at the baby in her arms with a gentle voice. Fantasy. Her name is FantasyTheHedgehog. A few hours had passed while Sally is at the Child Adoption Services building, registering in to adopt Fantasy the Hedgehog to be her guardian and caretaker. She thought it would be a piece of cake for a walk in a park, but she was proven wrong. So I still have to do a lot more paperwork and wait until it's approved by the Child Protective Services agency to see if it's a stable and good home for my child. Fantasy to live in. Sally said after repeating that from what the ladies told her about the information and adding some more to it too. Yes, Your Majesty. We also need to send an agent over in a month or so, along with going to court for guardianship and approval by the judge too. But we can either send an email or text or both if you want to us to update you on when your court date is and when the agent is coming to your house or castle to check up on things and safety conditions for the child as well. This progress takes up to 6 to 12 months in the process for it to be finished. After hearing all this information on paperwork and all, Sally felt a bit overwhelmed, but she was relieved when the Child Adoption Services concierge told her this. You can pay for adoption now, so that way you don't have to be worried about it later on, Your Majesty. It's going to be $2,000 to keep the child with you for now until you get full guardianship of her and all. We would normally take the child to a foster care and all, but due to recent events with the orphanage owner being mentally, physically, and verbally abusive towards the kids there, it's closed down and the orphanage lady is arrested on those charges and are still in the process of finding a new one. Sally remembered hearing all of this a while back about the events of the orphanage on how the owner secretly grew a hatred towards the kids and agreed to a paperwork to shut it down for now. Along with having Sally agreeing to the paperwork to shut it down for now, along with having the kids go somewhere else safe from where they are looked after by another orphanage owner that is more friendly, nice, and caring to the children. It was all a pretty disturbing and traumatizing story to hear, but at least the kids are in safer hands now. Then Sally then paid the Child Adoption Services concierge the money and signed a few more paperwork and began heading back to Bonnie and Antoine's cottage from where they are babysitting Fantasy, and that it's late in the evening but with some sunshine still. Meanwhile, at Bonnie and Antoine's family cottage, Fantasy met both twin brother and sister of their family. The family was watching some kids show on TV along with Fantasy while Antoine was cooking the kids some dinner for tonight as it's getting close to 5 p.m. and the sun is about to set very soon. The layout of the living room is that the couch is in front of the window and the TV up against the wall as well. The layout of the kitchen is with it on the other side from where the TV is, and that through the doorway is on the left of the TV, back facing the wall. You can see the sink from where they clean the dishes. While both the kids are in the corner along with hanging out with Fantasee, watching TV and keeping an eye on their dad in the kitchen just in case Antoine needs help. Antoine got a call from Sally as he was doing the dishes. Hey Antoine, I'm very sorry. It's taking me a long time for me to come back and pick up Fantasy. I got stuck on doing some paperwork with the Child Adoption Services Company for adopting and slowly began the progress of taking custody and guardianship of Fantasy. It's okay, Sally. I understand companies like the SAT sometimes needs us to fill out some paperwork for us to finish in the long run in order to ensure safety of others and ourselves around us. Plus, me and my lovely wife Bonnie don't mind watching Fantasy, Antoine said to Sally on the phone, reassuring her and showing empathy for her. Sally was relieved to hear all that as she was worrying a bit about it being too much work for her close friends. Thank you, Antoine. I really appreciate you and everyone's support in this time of need. Anyway, I'll be there in a few more minutes as I'm making my way to the cottage now. I'll see you all very soon. You're welcome, Sally. We are always here for you since we are like one big family together. Even though we are very busy with our lives, we still love and care about one another. Alright, see you soon. Antoine then hung up the phone and it sat on down the counter near the sink. He went to check on the meatloaf that's cooking in the oven when he suddenly slipped on some water that landed on the floor from the sink and Antoine landed on his back. When he slipped, he hit a knife that was hanging out on the edge of the sink by the handle as he made it flung in the air and head straight down for his left eye with the blade pointing down. Dad, watch! Ah! The twins stopped when they saw the knife somehow floating in midair, 3 inches away from Antoine's left eye, from his eyes wide open, like if he was about to get hit by a car or saw something extremely disturbing and terrifying. The knife then floated back up and into the sink. Antoine then slowly got up with the twins rushing to his aid to check on their dad. A few seconds later, Bunny came in rushing through the front door after hearing the twins scream for her dad. She then also picked up Fantasy in her arms and went to go check on her husband and children in the kitchen. Antoine, are you okay? What's happened and why did the kids scream for you? Bunny worriedly asked as Antoine is still trying to wrap his head around what just happened, along with figuring out how the knife didn't hit him, but stopped from 3 inches from his left eye. I don't know, dear. I think I'm just gonna lay on the couch and wrap my head around mine. Near-death experience. He said by standing up and his twins to the side of one on each of his sides, comforting him. The twins helped him get to the living room couch, and Lair started to slowly explain everything to Bunny. A few minutes later, Sally then showed up to pick up Fantasy. She then knocked on the front door, and Bunny answered it with Fantasy in her arms. Sally already saw Bunny has a worried expression on her face as she walked into the house and saw the rest of the family had one too as if they saw something terrifying happen. Is everything okay? Sally asked as she is taking Fantasy from Bunny's arms into her arms after Bunny laying her over to Sally. I'll give you a call about it and tell you later, Sal. Right now, we just need some time to process things. Sally, with a concerned look, then said next, okay, then everyone have a good night, and I'll talk to you later, Bunny. Have a good night, Sal. Bunny said as Sally was making her way out through the front door, heading back home with Fantasy in her arms.